Hello everyone. Welcome back to the videos on goods and services tax. So in yesterday's video we discussed about an introduction to the levy and collection of GST, the reverse charge mechanism and the composition scheme. In continuation with yesterday's talk, today we will be discussing about the concept of supply under GST. The applicability of GST comes only when there is a case of supply exists. Under GST, supply is considered as a taxable event for charging tax. If there is no supply, GST need not be considered. Under GST Act, we will not take or we will not use the term sale, but we use the term supply. Before GST regime, there was no concept of supply. It was mentioned differently for different indirect taxes. But all these taxable events in the pre-GST regime have been subsumed under the term supply. So in the case of GST, supply means it is a taxable event. Without a supply, there is no GST existence. So in today's video, we will discuss about the concept of supply under GST. So what do you mean by supply under GST? Supply includes a variety of terms, which includes sale, transfer, exchange, barter, license, rental, lease, and disposal. Of these terms, you will be familiar with a few of them. The other terms we will discuss now. So I hope you know about the concept of sale. What is a sale? You know, right? Then we have the term transfer. Transfer is transferring a particular thing to another person for money. Exchange is similar to transfer, exchanging things. Then what is barter? Have you heard about barter system in the ancient times? So barter means it is the exchange of one commodity for another commodity. There is no payment of money. So before the invention of money or the coins or the rupees, there existed a barter system where one person exchanged his commodity for another commodity for the from another person. Then we have the term license. I hope you know the concept of license. It is giving permission for something, for doing something. Then we have rental. Then we have lease. Lease means it is the right to use for a period of time without the transfer of ownership. And finally, we have disposal. Disposal means to part with or to alienate. So, all these terms constitute the concept of supply under GST. So, if a person undertakes either of these transactions during the course or furtherance of his business for a consideration, it will be covered under the meaning of supply under GST. So, take a note of all these terms like sale, transfer, exchange, etc. And it should be happening during the course or furtherance of business, and it should be happening for consideration. Then only it will be classified as or it will be known as supply under GST. Okay, so supply also means the import of services or goods with consideration. So the import of services or goods are also classified under the head supply, included under the head supply. So in case of supply, there are mainly two elements, and satisfaction of these two elements only will constitute a supply. Let's see. The first element is supply is done for a consideration. In case of a supply, there should be a consideration. And second element, a supply should be done in the course or furtherance of a business. So, if a supply satisfies only these two conditions or only these two elements, it can be called or termed as a supply. Okay, under GST Act. So let's see an example. So in example 1, Mr. Arun buys a table for 20,000 rupees for his personal use and he sells it off after 9 months of use to a dealer. So he purchased it for his personal use, and after use of 9 months he sold it. This is not considered as supply under CGST, as this is not done by Mr. Arun for the furtherance of business. So it was purchased for his personal use, and after the personal use he disposed it. So this is not done by Mr. Arun for the furtherance of business. So this transaction cannot be termed as supply under GST. Okay. So let's say example 2. Miss Bhima provides free coaching to neighboring students as a hobby. She does it as a hobby. This is not considered as supply, as this act is not performed for a consideration. She is only doing it as a part of her hobby, that is free coaching to neighboring students. There is no consideration involved in it, so it cannot be termed as supply. So in order to mention a transaction, or in order to define a transaction as a supply, it should have these two elements, that is, it should be done for a consideration and it should be done in the course or furtherance of business. So now we will discuss about the determination of nature of supply. So supply can be classified under nature into two main sections, that is interstate supply and intrastate supply. So interstate supply means it is the supply of goods as well as the supply of services between two states, or between two states or two union territories. At the same time, intrastate supply means it is the supply of goods as well as the supply of services within the state or within the union territories. Okay, so now we will see the nature of supply, or how to determine the nature of supply. So in the case of interstate trade or commerce, in order to mention a transaction as a supply, it should follow the, or it should meet the following conditions. 1. The location of the supplier and the place of supply are in two different states, because it is interstate. So location of supplier and the place of supply should be in two different states. Then it is an interstate supply. Then when the location of supplier and the place of supply are in two different union territories, it can be termed as an interstate supply. And third one, the location of supplier and place of supply are in a state and a union territory. That means the supplier is located in a particular state and the place of supply is in a particular union territory. It can also be termed under the head interstate supply. Okay, so we determine the nature of interstate supply with these three conditions. So if these three conditions are satisfied, or any of these conditions are satisfied, we will classify it as interstate supply. Okay, so now let's see what is meant by intrastate supply, or how to determine the nature of intrastate supply. So intrastate means it is within the state or within the unit territory. Supply of goods or services shall not be treated as intrastate trade or commerce in the following cases. So the first case is supply of goods to or by a SEZ, that is Special Economic Zone Developer or Special Economic Zone Unit. So in this case, it should not be treated as an intrastate trade or commerce. Okay. Then 2. Goods imported into the territory of India till they cross the customs frontiers of India. So till they cross the frontiers of India or the boundary of India, it should not be treated as an intrastate supply. And 3, we have supplies made to a tourist being a person not normally resident in India, who enters India for a stay of not more than 6 months for legitimate non-immigrant purposes. So if a particular supply of good or a service is made to a tourist who is not a normal resident in India, it shall not be treated as an intrastate trade or commerce. So, the supply of goods or services should not be treated as an intrastate trade or commerce in these three cases. Okay. So, I hope you got an idea about the concept of supply and how to determine the nature of supply. In the next video, we will discuss about the place of supply. That means the location of supplier and the place of supply determines whether a supply is intrastate or interstate. So we should know how to determine the place of supply of goods or services. So we'll talk about the place of supply concept in the next video. Thank you.